Hey everybody, welcome back to another Motivation Monday podcast for Monday, March 18th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining us on another Monday and getting your week started off. Hopefully we can offer some words of encouragement and some things to think about for the coming week in terms of making music and getting better at your instrument in the world of jazz. So what I wanted to talk about today is a question you should ask yourself. And I think it requires a little bit of discussion up front about this very podcast. So something that I've tasked myself with is clarifying some of the common things that get musicians and make them not want to pursue jazz any further, if that makes sense. There's a lot of really confusing things when it comes to understanding how to play music, how music works, and especially in a very complicated form of music such as jazz, there are things that need to be explained. And hence the reason why I put these episodes out every single week is to offer a little bit of inspiration and something concrete to dive into and hopefully clearing up some of the issues that you guys have. But the thing that I want to talk about today is bringing this thing that we call jazz or creative music or whatever you want to call it really back to its core. And I think that core is the music has to feel good. Does that make sense? It has to make you want to tap your foot, or it has to make you want to kind of move a little bit. It has to get you at a visceral level. So we can talk about all of the harmonic concepts that we want to on the show. And obviously, you guys know that I think that talking about that stuff is very valuable. And that's knowledge that you need to have in your brain and you need to be able to execute. But at the end of the day, does it feel good? So I'm talking about swing. Do you have that sense of swing? Or, it doesn't have to be swing. I mean, all jazz doesn't swing. We've all played straight eighth note jazz tunes, but does it feel good? Does it feel right? Or is that part of it off? So this is something you should be thinking about all the time when you're practicing. Now, you might be practicing this super advanced harmonic concept, but at the end of the day, when you play it, does it feel good? Because the notes don't really mean anything unless you have great feeling to them and have your time down, have the fundamentals of this music happening for you. The analogy that I like to make when it comes to this side of playing music is with writing. Now, you could have somebody with a complete command over the English language, has a huge vocabulary, knows the definition of words that you've never even heard of before, but does that make them a great writer if they're not really saying anything through their writing? No, it doesn't. I would much rather read something that is really saying something and using less verbose language than hearing somebody use, very complicated vocabulary for no reason whatsoever, just to show that they can do it. So I'm curious to know whether you guys think about this in your practice sessions, right? How many times do you just go and play over a blues with something super simple, not even really thinking about the changes, but really just thinking about saying something with a limited vocabulary? I think that that's one of the best things you can possibly do for yourself. And the reason why I'm thinking about this week is I was working with a student on Friday, and we were talking about Dexter Gordon. He had been transcribing some Dexter Gordon, and I was saying to him, why does somebody like Dexter Gordon appeal to even non-jazz fans, right? So people who have no idea what's going on harmonically when Dexter Gordon plays, but they still find something really like base level, visceral about, this sounds amazing. I can definitely get into this, right? And what we came to the conclusion was that it was a combination of his sound, his confidence, and his feel. It's the way he plays the notes, not the notes that he plays. And I think that that's really important to think about, because you have to figure a lot of the people that listen to us play, they have no idea if you're using a, diminished dominant or a whole tone scale over certain changes. What do they want to know? Does this make me want to tap my foot? Does this make me feel good, or does it make me feel not so good? And I think that that's really important to come back to at the end of the day. I hear lots and lots and lots of people who are jazz musicians that are playing great material, but the way they're playing it needs some serious help, meaning that they need to go back to listening and copying your favorite musicians, trying to match up exactly with how they play stuff. That's one of the best ways to create a better feel for yourself, and need to work on their tone, right? So time and tone, I think those are two words that are super important and should be in the front of your mind whenever you're practicing. So carve out some time in your day, in between when you're burning those brain cells trying to work on all these complicated scales that I'm showing you, to just go back and play over a blues, maybe using the blues scale or something like that, right? And try to make something really, really interesting out of that limited palette of colors, because then you need to rely on other skills that we all have as musicians rather than just, running notes and playing all this crazy harmonic material. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. That's something that I've been thinking about a lot with my younger students, is getting them to do more with less and rely on the feel, the tone, and the time, rather than relying on all these fancy notes and arpeggios and stuff like that. So let me know what you think. Drop me a note in the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group on Facebook. Just search for that exact phrase on Facebook, and let's start a discussion about this. How many of you feel that side of your playing is a little bit lacking, and maybe you could benefit by going back and playing along with somebody like Dexter Gordon, playing along with somebody like Miles Davis, all these musicians who appeal to a wider audience? And I'll tell you, there's a reason for that, and we need to think long and hard about what that reason is and how we can get closer to that feeling ourselves. Just one more thing. I played at the University of New Hampshire Clark Terry Jazz Festival this weekend at a jam session put on by my good friend Chris Claxton, where we played all Clark Terry tunes. And one thing that really, really struck me about playing those tunes is that he wrote so much of his hundreds of tunes over two forms, the blues and rhythm changes. And he made so many things happen over those very simple forms. So somebody like Clark Terry is just amazing. The amount of ideas he had over a couple of his favorite progressions really makes you think. It's not all about pushing those harmonic barriers. It's all about making the most out of what you have. And that will naturally lead you to push the boundaries a little bit. But let's take care of the kind of core competencies first. It's got to feel good. All right, enough of me rambling. Let's talk about this. Let me know what you think. Have a great week. Stay inspired. Pull out that metronome. Start playing along with Clark Terry. Start playing along with Dexter Gordon. All that good stuff. All right, we'll see you on Friday with a regular episode. Have a great week, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.